Mr. Neil Cannon, zooming in from a biohacking lab from Malibu, California. How are you, sir? Welcome to the Rich Equation podcast.
Thank you, Ashish. It's an honor to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation. I wasn't planning to do this from this lab, but time overran. Been here for
it is the third time you and I have been trying to record, and you are busier than I, traveling the world, fixing people, writing books, making people better. And I had to nail you down. So I don't think we were ever going to be able to find you where you were just in your home office sitting ready for doing a podcast. So I'm just glad you're here. I'm honored that you're here. I'm excited for this conversation as well. So I guess let me kind of, why don't you kind of introduce yourself? I've known you for a little bit, but I want you to introduce yourself to the audience so people kind of know how you got into this work, what you're up to. You know, you just wrote a book about the Vitality Code, about inflammation, about longevity, about health. So give us a quick rundown of kind of how did Neil get here and what was the story about Neil Cannon?
Great question. And I'm sure you know that a lot of people in holistic health come with their own story of healing.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say everyone who works in holistic health comes with their own story of healing, either healing something themselves or something that a relative or someone closer to them is suffering from. And I actually fit into both of those categories because I had really bad eczema for about 30 years. And it wasn't until my dad had a stroke when I started to really research what was going on with my own body, because I was researching why he had the stroke. And I had this kind of inner knowing that his stroke was avoidable. And having written a book by that point on increasing testosterone naturally for guys, I kept on seeing this word inflammation everywhere. He was diagnosed with chronic inflammation a few years prior to his stroke by his naturopathic doctor sister, my aunt. And I just remember this so vividly when he had the stroke, and I just thought it was avoidable. It was like my innate intelligence telling me he did not have to have the stroke. So I went about a bit of a research quest and wanted to find out what that was all about, because I was just convinced it was unnecessary. And that's what I found. And I quickly realized that chronic inflammation is the underlying cause of just about every chronic illness, including his stroke, the hypertension that led to the stroke, the asthma he'd had since 12, which is a fully reversible condition, contrary to popular belief, and of course the eczema I'd had since I was a very young age. So growing up, I was always given these treatments which were very short-term solutions, and all of them caused harm. Steroid creams, which left pigmentation in my skin. I don't know if you can see that. But where I've used steroid creams too much, I've lost the pigment. Prescription moisturizers full of really quite nasty ingredients. And antibiotics when it got particularly bad. So I realized really that I could heal my eczema by healing the inflammation. And that's exactly what I did. So I went on a very strict anti-inflammatory diet and lifestyle and noticed changes pretty quickly, and that's ultimately how I fell into the world of holistic health, or at least was the next stage of my journey in holistic health. So since 2015, I've been helping my clients reverse anything related to chronic inflammation, which is so many things, so many labels, and that's what I do. That's a long answer to your question.
I love it. Let's talk about, because I totally agree with you, inflammation is it's such an important pillar to knock down so many other diseases, chronic diseases, stress, the things we eat, our lifestyle stress, business stress, the things we consume from a food perspective, nutrition perspective, the toxins in our environment are just pushing on the corner of inflammation, which then leads to everything else, right? So let's talk about the Vitality Code. Talk about the 4 pillars. What's the book about?
I'm going to grab the copy just quickly. It's just here. Hope that's okay. So this is that's what it looks like. So the 4 pillars are the physical, mental, emotional, and energetic. So as you might imagine, most people start when they go about reversing an illness or wanting to heal an illness, they start with the physical. It's the most tangible. So Most people start with diet. They might move more if they're not moving, detoxifying, looking into toxins, which might be internal to the body or external. So like you were saying, it's really inflammation is our body's response to toxins, whether it's in the environment or what we're consuming. And it's also down to chronic stress as a result of trapped emotions and trauma, which we'll come on to in a moment. But really, the physical pillar is about cleaning up the whole body from a physical standpoint, making sure we're breathing. A lot of people aren't. If they're not moving, they're not breathing well. And if we are moving, some people aren't breathing enough or well. So a lot of change can be made with how we breathe. Water, cleanest and purest of water money can buy. Nutrients, the best food we can eat, organic and not interfered with by man. Avoiding GMOs like the plague. Anything fake, anything man-made, factory-made. If it's man-made, don't eat it. Number 4 is really understanding the body's need to detoxify. This is one of the cell. I'm kind of naming these cell fuels, but the 4th one isn't really a fuel; it's an essential requirement. We need to be able to detoxify. So, and then we need grounding. We need to be able to sleep. We need sunlight. So there's just breaking everything down in a very simple.
Those are the physical pillars.
This is within the physical pillar.
Physical pillar.
So we want to be, diet and exercise is the simplest way of thinking of it, and other toxins. They're the main things we look at in the physical pillar. Most people can get results just by addressing that pillar alone within all the subcategories. And once that's kind of in momentum and we're doing that, we then look into the mental and the emotional and the emotional. So the mental is, as you might imagine, so important. The brain is like a brain chemist. We know that we know the placebo effect, that we can heal the body through thought alone. That's how powerful our brains are. Through the sheer power of belief, when we take that substance, which we think is a drug, we think that we believe that that's gonna heal us, and almost by magic, through taking it repeatedly, for a number of days, weeks, months, whatever, the body heals itself, even though there's nothing in that substance, an inert substance. So we know that through that it's scientifically proven that the body can heal through thought alone. That's the placebo effect, and we want to be using that as much as we can. The nocebo effect is that in reverse. So if we wake up and we have the same thoughts, same beliefs and behaviors and emotions from the day before, we can end up recreating illness through thought alone. So it's about getting that balance right. And it's really important to just understand the sheer power of the brain to heal the body and the mind, or do the opposite. We obviously want to make it heal the body. And then another really critical piece of the mental pillar is to get really clear on the vision of what we want to create for our body and our life, and how a vital life is going to impact every area of our lives. One of my new clients I signed up a few weeks ago, he's 78, and he says he sees vitality as a vehicle. And I thought that was gold, because if we are in a vital state, we are able to give so much more to every other aspect of our lives, whether it's relationships, close, intimate, family, children, our work, career, passion, hobbies. Everything is related to it's the vessel. We are. It's really obviously what I'm saying, but it's just a good point, because we don't want to let go of the health, because if we let go of our health, everything else suffers. So we want to tune that vision into something so inspiring, so we'll do whatever it takes to be in a vital state and enjoy the process, because most of this is really enjoyable. I'd say 19.
I would agree with you.
Yeah. There's very little about vitality that's not enjoyable, unless you have to go and put a needle in your arm and take blood out and test your benchmark where you are now. Something I don't like doing, but what gets measured gets managed. So for the most part, vitality is an enjoyable journey, and it doesn't have to be like a sacrifice and a huge mission and stop everything we enjoy. So that's the mental in a nutshell. In emotional, is understanding how our emotions, much like our thoughts and beliefs, can make us sick, or they can make us vital. So if we are chronically stressed, I think a lot of people can get their head around how chronic stress leads to chronic illness, and it does. It's often spoken about how 90% of illness is down to chronic stress. What most people don't realize is what stress really is, and it's our perception of what's happening around us, and it's our response to our events in our lives which cause that stress in the body. So with some emotional intelligence tools that I've learned over the last decade, we can reframe and find new meaning and create new meaning for everything that's happening a lot in our lives all the time to change the stress response in the body. And of course, there's other ways to calm the body down as well that most of us know about, like exercising and going for a massage and getting into nature and meditating and breath work and all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
So the emotional pillar is so important. They're all really important. The emotional one is very relatable because I think so many people can realize how stress leads to illness. And yes, I've just talked a lot. Do you have any questions about anything I've just said?
No, I want to get in each pillar. I think keep going. Finish your thought here on the pillars, and then maybe we'll get lost in some of the details of it. But I'm listening.
So the next part in the emotional pillar is around trapped emotions and trauma. And this is such a huge part. And it's the part that a lot of people don't even go to when they're going about a holistic healing journey. And it's often the last place people go to if they go there at all. A lot of people will just kind of clean up the diet, drink vegetable juices every day, get exercising and wondering why nothing's changing or not as much as changing. There's the reason I've written about 4 pillars is because we do need to address every angle. And normally, and the emotional piece is more often than not, 90% of statistics are made up on the spot, but I'm just going to say 90% of illness or 95, who knows the actual statistic, but it's very high. Most illnesses are rooted in trapped emotions and trauma.
Right.
It's often a combo between trauma and toxicity. So we can actually figure out, without doing any talk therapy, if there's trapped energy in the body. And I'm a huge fan of these somatic ways to release this trapped energy. We can use applied kinesiology, for example, or bioresonance devices, which I'm using right now in this biohacking lab in Malibu, which I was very kindly invited to. We can actually release these emotions, which are like electromagnetic bundles of energy. And it doesn't have to be a painful experience. When people hear about trauma, it's often a very charged word. We don't have to go and revisit it. We don't have to talk about it. In fact, talking about it can make it worse because of a term in neuroscience that's nerve cells that fire together, wire together, or neurons that fire together, wire together. The more we talk about an event, the more we give it energy, and the more energy we give to anything, the more it expands. And that's exactly what we don't want to do with trauma. So that's why I love to although there's obviously a place for talk therapy, what I like to do is help people just release that energy. And it can be done in seconds. And often people have had pain for 10 years. And we go and release some emotions from the lower back or a knee or a hip or the head for migraines. And it's often gone in, sometimes even in a session, but often in 24 hours. So it can be so powerful. There's many ways to do this, many ways to skin a cat, as horrible as that saying is. There's many ways to release trapped emotions and trauma. So that's a big part of the emotional pillar. And then the one that excites me the most personally is the energetic pillar, because we are more energy than we are physical. We're energy before we are physical. And most of us have lost touch with this because of whatever. But when we understand this us as energy beings, and we go back to our physics lessons in school and realize that everything is vibration, and we are vibrating, everything's vibrating in a different frequency, and we are energy bodies. We are like energy beings in physical bodies. So a lot of magic can happen in the body very quickly when we do meditation and breath work and I think you might have seen me talk about Dr. Joe Dispenza, for example. He's a brilliant pioneer in this space, really backing everything up with science and data, showing what's happening in the body when we meditate, when we visualize, when we do heart and brain coherence, which is a phenomenal practice that I think we should all do. It's amazing what happens in the body with meditation. And there's every reason imaginable to ensure we all do that. So, and then of course, in the world of energy, it goes beyond the physical bodies because everything's energy. We can actually change our lives external to us by changing our energy. And we can start to manifest and bring awesome situations to our lives, like a phone call this morning saying, come to this biohacking lab. And it was just very kind of serendipitous and synchronistic. So there's a world of energy that I think is so exciting, and there's so many methods of healing with energy. There's so many expansions of what happens in this space, from psychic abilities to healing with your hands, and which I do kind of unofficially, which we can all do,
Yes.
and lots of magic in that world. So, and plant medicines and this, yeah, it's just really fun and exciting. And I see the energy pillar like a reward for people who go down the holistic health path.
So I love all of this. You know that. We've talked about this before. I feel like I have experimented or done 80, 90% of everything you just said.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I think that, I'm also a seeker, and I like to experiment and learn, and always looking for vitality and more energy to do things. But I think often people find this path when they're really sick, when they're really stressed, perhaps too late, maybe when they're overweight, or they're suffering with something that is incredibly chronic, and not sort of doing it along their life throughout their journey to try to maintain a level of health, but it's like it's almost too late. And then I'm thinking, well, that's all great, Neil, and I personally know a lot, but if I don't know what you just said, wow, that's really cool, Neil. I love all those things, but that's going to take me forever. Those are like 25, 30 things you just told me to go do. Diet, exercise, water, sleep. Those are some obvious, like, low-hanging fruit things that people just should have common sense to do, right? But when you talk about grounding, you're talking about sauna, ice baths, meditation. What else did we talk about here? Like being in nature, magnetic energy, heart-body coherence, all these things. It's like it can be overwhelming,
Oh, totally. Yeah.
right? So what advice do you have for people if they're in those shoes right now, and they are like, I love what Neil is talking about. I want the energy of Neil. I want the energy of Ashish. I want to be on this I want to be on a vital path here, but this mountain seems really high to climb. I don't know where to start. I don't know how long I have. I don't say in terms of terminalness, but like, is this a 1-year journey? Is it a 5-year journey? So talk to us a little bit about that. How do you overcome that sort of buyer remorse?
I love this question. I like that you use the word journey, because I talk about taking people on a vitality journey.
Right.
If we had to do this all at once, it would be so overwhelming. So
It is overwhelming, right?
the first thing is baby steps. I've just self-discovered most of this stuff over the last 10 years. And, how can I help people implement what I learned in 10 years in 8 weeks, which is normally the journey I start with. Although I've signed up a few yearly clients literally in the last month. So, because a lot of people realize they want the journey to be longer. A lot of illnesses can have significant change in 8 weeks, which is why I've said
8 weeks.
Yeah, even less. I mean, I've helped people with eczema, for example, and they can notice it within a week. It's just the body heals so fast, and depending on what the body is going through, it depends, of course, how long it's going to take.
So what are you advising to do if somebody came to you, and I know it depends, but like what are the low hanging fruit, obvious things to do in an 8 week period of time?
Yeah. Sorry, back to that question. So I normally start people off with the diet. Just clean up the diet. Diet and exercise can make a huge difference to anyone's life. And we want to make it as simple as possible. Think about what you're eating which isn't healthy. What isn't in alignment with nature? What's been tampered with? Is there anything processed you're eating? Sugar? If you're in America, gluten. In fact, everywhere really gluten, but it's particularly bad in America. Dairy, for the most part. I just had a scan. It showed me that I'm intolerant to gluten and dairy. I wasn't surprised at all because that's one of the main things.
So am I, actually. Yeah.
Most people actually are. Some people do praise raw milk and some forms of raw dairy. My body doesn't like it.
Yeah.
So I normally suggest to people to there's three main culprits outside of fake food and fried food and man-made and GMO. Three main culprits are gluten, dairy, and sugar.
Yeah.
If
I agree with you completely.
Yeah, if people just limit those or remove them or replace them, I like to say, so much can change.
In such a short time. Such a short time.
And if you've got a skin condition, that's probably where it's going to make a difference the fastest, or noticeable difference the fastest.
Okay, so that's diet. I totally agree with you because I've experienced this, and I'll tell you my story here in a minute, but I totally agree with you. Besides diet, what else?
We want to be making sure we are moving.
So definitely exercising, moving.
Yes. If we're not moving, we're not oxygenating, and we're not using our muscles, which actually generates energy in the body. So a lot of people don't know that part about exercise. We are the body electric, and our muscles are like battery packs. And that's why we feel energized when we move. We are creating electrons. Muscles are piezoelectric, which means that when we move, we are emitting electrons, and that is the creation of energy inside the body.
Right.
So unless you go and do like an endurance something, which is typically you don't feel energized afterwards, but I'm a huge fan of short runs or high intensity training or weight resistance training, sometimes weight training, but mostly body weight resistance training. Always feel energized in 20 to 30 minutes, not normally longer than that. Or a walk in nature, of course. There's no time that I'll ever regret going for a walk in nature. In fact, I've never regretted working out. But it's there's that phrase that says, "I really regret that workout," said no one ever.
Yeah.
We're going to feel energized. We're going to feel good, and we need to move. We can't outsource exercise, and we must move to be active. Well, to be healthy and vital. And there's a number of reasons. Another reason we have to move is to detoxify. If we're not moving, we're not detoxifying very well. The lymphatic system requires movement for it to work properly, and for us to sweat, or the body temperature needs to raise ever so slightly, and that normally means sweating, so it can escape. And if we're sedentary, we're not detoxifying. We have many detoxification organs. The lymphatic system is one system that we need to really pay attention to. So we want to find a way to move that we enjoy and we enjoy it. And it might just be walking. I'll never forget meeting someone a few years ago in Los Angeles who was something like 400 pounds. And he got to a really good size, 32-inch waist by walking everywhere. He did take out the sugar he was also consuming. But for the most part with diet, he just walked. And walking is a really great form of exercise. So it can be it doesn't have to be hardcore intensity, but I do think it's great to do resistance training, men and women.
So between food, exercise, let's add in sleep, good quality sleep, maybe good quality water. Those are like low cost, easy to do, 8 weeks program. How much better should somebody feel if I'm a 1 on day 1 within 8 weeks? If I just really take ownership of those 4 things.
If within 8 weeks with just that, you're going to notice a big difference.
Huge difference.
We do it with mental, emotional, and energetic within the 8 weeks.
Sure.
So, depending on who I'm working with, sometimes
sure.
It's mainly on that. So let's do it for 4, or let's just use your example, 8 weeks. If all you did is all of those things, you're going to make a huge difference. Anyone's going to feel different.
I love it. And then you add meditation, you
Yep.
add some grounding, you add some
Exactly.
sauna, you add some breath work, you add a couple of those things. Now you're taking it from maybe a 7 to a 9 within an 8-week period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
So a lot can be done in 8 weeks. I do like to go a bit longer. I just like to,
Sure, sure,
I
sure.
like to let people know that so much can change in the body in 8 weeks.
Well, I think one of the things that I've learned is how important the gut is in this entire cycle, in this entire process. Um, I had long COVID, and I've shared that on the podcast before. And with high stress, all the toxins with COVID, I had a lot of I had cognitive dysfunction, which is what caused me to go look for help, look for healing. And the first thing that my practitioner looked at was the things you just said is we didn't do so much exercise because he didn't want to increase cortisol levels, right? Because I was already in a high stress state. But he actually really prescribed no milk, no dairy, no sugar, no gluten, no lectins, anything that is causing inflammation in the gut. Let's eliminate it. Let's boost the digestive system.
Totally.
Tell me about what you think about that, or how important is that in the overall formula?
I am totally in alignment, except for the thing about exercise increasing cortisol, because
Cortisol.
there's ways that you can move without.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I mean, yoga, you can walk. You're right.
Yeah, there's so many ways.
Yeah.
And gut health is everything. Gut health, gut brain link is very real. The gut health affects the brain, and the brain affects the gut health. So if we clean up, in fact, even in mainstream media a few years ago, I say even because I think when it comes to health, the mainstream media is near on, let's just say, not useful. I say in the media a few years ago, they discussed how chronic inflammation was linked to depression in about a third of cases in depression. So the gut.
Really?
Yeah. So if the gut's inflamed, the brain's inflamed. If we're eating toxins, we're not going to be feeling good.
You're talking about anxiety, depression,
Yeah.
fear, tension in the brain is caused mostly by the toxins or the inflammation we're causing by the things we're ingesting.
Well, a third of cases was these.
A third of cases.
So I would argue it's higher. Depletion of sunlight. I wrote a post yesterday on the power of sunlight. What happens when your skin, when the sun shines on the skin and the skin creates vitamin D, your body creates vitamin D when the sun lands on the skin, which creates lots of hormones, one of which is dopamine. So, I think it's dopamine, yeah. And that's like a happy chemical. And if the sun also affects the gut health. So, yes, of course, food is very important with gut health, and oxygen is important for gut health, and sunlight is important for gut health, and grounding is important for gut health. There's all these things important for gut health. So, coming back to the depression thing, inflammation doesn't just have to be from the diet. Someone could be inflamed and have a very clean diet. They could have mercury in the mouth, or they could be sleeping next to their cell phone, emitting Wi-Fi signals all night, causing inflammation. There's lots of reasons why inflammation happens. But yes, our gut health and inflammation affects the brain.
We live in a world today where biohacking is like a cool phrase, and I'm sure you're a biohacker in terms of always looking for the thing that just optimizes you, or maybe it's a supplement, or maybe it's a physical activity or something specific that is really boosting you to the next level, or maybe changing your hormones or recalibrating your energy or whatever it may be. For you, besides food, sleep, water, and exercise, from a biohacking perspective, what is like your silver bullet? It's like, if I do that, it knocks down a lot of pillars. Is there something like that for you? Maybe one or two things?
I think either breathwork or ice baths.
Ah, I was going to say ice
And
baths.
I never imagined I would like ice baths. I don't like the cold, unless I'm snowboarding, but then I'm wrapped up and prepared. But it's I got into it in August 2022. I was doing it occasionally before that, but consistently from then. And I've been leading a breathwork group since October 2020 during COVID. I'm in a community of guys, and I wanted to set up a support group, an accountability group, but it's grown into much more than that, for people to breathe every day, because the Wim Hof breathing method, and there's other methods, of course, help the body in so many ways, and the immune system is one of the main ways it helps. Yeah, I mean, there's so many benefits to breath
So
work,
breath work and ice baths.
and that combination, the Wim Hof method, giving credit where it's due, is cold therapy. So that can be cold showers or ice baths or ice baths, and breath work. You do those
Totally agree.
things, and then you got the commitment, so you're doing it consistently. You feel amazing.
You feel amazing.
When I travel, one of the first things I normally do is, well, if I go back to Mexico, I'll ground first. In fact, the same when I go to England, I'll ground.
Explain to people what that is if they don't know what grounding is.
It literally means connecting the feet to the ground, because the ground is a sea of negatively charged electrons. We are the body electric. Everything about the body is electrical. And if we walk on the ground, or we swim in the ocean or a lake or a river, or we sleep grounded on grounded sheets, which is something I recommend my clients, we are absorbing these electrons into the body, and it's scientifically proven to bring inflammation down, and it's good for jet lag and energy and lots of other things. So what I was about to say about the going to Mexico is, one of the first things I'll do is get in the ice bath, and I miss it when I'm not with it.
Yeah.
I've been away for the last month, and I haven't gone to Mexico yet. I'm in LA now, and I'm going there the next few days, and it's going to be the first thing I do. And it's like it becomes a meditative experience as well as feeling so good.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I talk about ice baths all the time. I've been talking about it for years. I feel like it is, I mean, I'm so glad you said it also, but it is for me, anytime I see one person who's suffering or struggling, physical, mental, emotional, it like the first silver bullet I tell them, which maybe people believe me or not, but it is the one single thing that I think makes the biggest impact in how you feel. And now what's fun is that there's scientific proof and evidence of what it's doing in the body with inflammation and your hormone changes and all the chemistry. But just how you feel is so enhanced. It's so hyper. It's incredible. And it really does do a lot of physiological things that improves your overall state of being and your energy and your health. So I'm really glad you said, and I just started layering on sauna, infrared sauna. And man, that
Gold.
that between that and ice baths is just not only for me, but for the people that I know that are really in optimal health or looking for optimal health and sustainability and things like that. It's just so powerful.
Infrared saunas, I just
Yeah,
piggybacking off that quickly, they're incredible.
they're incredible.
If you're in, I actually posted a picture yesterday of me just lying on a beach in Croatia. I was on holiday, appreciating being on holiday, and lying on the beach and just talking about the immune system, because one of the best things you can do for the immune system is to be in the sun. Of course, we don't want to get burnt, but the sun can be protective in so many ways for the immune system. And infrared saunas are a way, it's like a biohack
Totally.
to get those rays onto the skin without the harmful rays. And you're passively sweating, which is also great for the lymphatic system. So you've got the infrared light, you've got the sweating, and lots of other things happening as well. It's amazing.
So
Sweating.
Neil, sometimes I want a hamburger, man. Oh, I'm a vegetarian, but
Sometimes,
sometimes I want a piece of cake.
some,
Sometimes, I want to have something that perhaps is not good for me. What is your advice?
I'm the same. I like to treat myself. I had a hamburger the other night, although I did have a lettuce wrap. It was a grass fed hamburger with some friends,
You're
And
so funny. You're so
part of
funny.
me really wanted to get the bat, but I just don't like the gluten in America. When I was
Yeah,
in Europe, I I did have more bread than usual because I know that the bread is actually far better quality than in the States.
yeah,
I didn't have a lot, but I did have a bit. And so I do, I treat myself. I have the occasional dessert, and I just say sometimes it's fine. A lot of we can go so in the opposite direction when it becomes a stress to decide what to eat. We got to
absolutely.
enjoy it, and it's got to be an enjoyable process. And also the thoughts that we have. This is going pretty into the energy world. The thought that we have about the food that we're eating is
Hmm.
hugely impactful. Because if we have guilty thoughts as we're consuming a cake or bap or burger or whatever, guess what happens in the body? But if we consume it and genuinely believe that it's nourishing our cells, then there is a lot of evidence to suggest that that's very powerful.
I also feel like if you're 95% doing well with these things that we're talking about, eating low inflammation foods, moving your body, exposing yourself to good nutrients and sunlight and all those kinds of things, that if you're going to cheat and do something, your body knows what to do with it very efficiently because it doesn't want to hold on to that stuff.
I agree
So
with
it's like, oh, this is a toxin. Let's get rid of it quickly and efficiently. And it just does a better job of flushing the system. And let's talk about mitochondria. Let's talk about energy, pure like cellular energy. What can we do? And I want this secretly. Like, what can we do? Tell us supplements, hacks. What can we do to really improve cellular power?
Well, the everything we've just said is good for the mitochondria. The
Okay.
sunlight is probably the best way we can absorb the energy for the cells to the mitochondria is the battery pack of the cell, and when the sun lands on the skin, it converts it into vitamin D, and then it energizes the body as well. So we that's probably the number one hack. Breathwork is going to be amazing for the mitochondria.
Mm,
Assuming in terms of voltage, which is obviously connected with the mitochondria, voltage in the body, everything's about voltage. Green juices is one of my favorite hacks for.
really?
Oh yeah, they when we consume pure organic green juices as fresh as we possibly can, we are also photosynthesizing the energy from the plants, which have synthesized the energy from the sun.
Mm,
So if I
straight to the cell.
if my skin isn't good, for example, and I last week I arrived in LA about 5 days ago, I would not have done this podcast if it was on Monday. I hadn't slept well. I was feeling depleted for just like a day or two, but a few things in England were catching up with me. I didn't feel good, and I just this week vegetable juicing every day, sunlight, grounding, all the things, and feel so much better. But I noticed with my skin that if it's feeling not so good, maybe just a bit dry, the plane dehydrated me basically.
Yeah,
And even though I was drinking a ton of water, I looked at myself the next day and I thought, let's take care of this. Vegetable juicing, noticed a difference in a day.
totally agree.
Always.
Yeah.
So, what's best for our mitochondria? Those things, sunlight, grounding, those two things are so powerful. Vegetable juicing, yeah, there's supplements. You can go and do an IV nutrient drip, that will really help. I'm not someone who takes a gazillion supplements every day. I'm just not that person. There's a few.
Actually, I'm not either. I take very little, surprisingly,
Yeah,
and I've reduced it big time. I think
yeah,
just doing the things you just said, huge benefit.
totally. Um,
Yeah.
I also use these stem cell patches, which I think are
Mm,
far more useful than a lot of supplements that sometimes we don't even absorb, and we take them willy nilly without really understanding if our body's absorbing them or if our body needs them. So,
I love it.
if what I say to my clients is find out, we can do various testing, figure out where you're deficient, and then go that way. But don't just take a bunch of supplements. There's a few you might want to take glutathione, CoQ10, vitamin C, vitamin D, some standard useful ones. And then there's some others. But I think it's really good to find out, get a benchmark for where we're at, and then we could decide whether we need to take some and the quantity.
I love it.
Just spend a lot of money on something.
Neil, why don't you plug your program and your book? If somebody's listening to this and liked the conversation, tell us where we can find the book. I know besides Amazon, there it is, The Vitality Code by Neil Cannon. You can find it on Amazon. But tell us if there's anywhere else to contact you, get coaching from you. What does the program look like? What's a good place to start? Tell the audience, please.
Thank you. So the main website is vitalitysecret.com. You can find all the kind of transformations that people have had there and find the offerings. I have an online course for men, and I have private coaching for both men and women, and various products as well on that site. The way the coaching works is, and the book's on Amazon, as you said. The way the coaching works is we go on this journey. So we cover the physical, the mental, the emotional, the energetic pillars of vitality. We start by getting super clear on the vision. Sometimes people have actually done this one exercise and gone, that was worth the entire investment alone.
Yes.
A lot of people try all these different fitness programs or exercise diet programs, and they don't start with the mindset. And it's not unusual for people to just quit after a few weeks because of X, Y, and Z. I think once we get clear on our vision and what we want from our body and how that's going to impact everything, like we were saying earlier, it really helps to stay tuned and in alignment with that vision. So I guide people on a journey through the physical, mental, emotional, energetic over 8 weeks and longer if they'd like to. We start off also taking a benchmark of tests, or rather taking tests to have a benchmark, and we kind of course correct every week. So we meet for an hour every week, and I'm talking private consulting now. We meet for an hour every week. I always follow up with an email within a day of what we discuss with action, etc. Links to watch, often recommend a documentary. There's ways to kind of really embody what we're talking about. And we course correct every week for 8 weeks.
Love it.
And at the end of it, we retest and see not only are symptoms normally not only have they eased a lot or disappeared, but you can see it in the blood work as well.
I feel like I'm generally on the right track, and I love talking to you. I love what you're doing. I think it just reinforced a lot of the actions or the activities that we need to do in our life, in our everyday life. I think that the core things are simple, doable, not expensive, right? But I think that one of the biggest takeaways I have from today's episode or today's discussion is really like, it's not only it's the mind. It's like, what are our thoughts, and not just the good thoughts, but the bad ones. What did you call it? Not the placebos, but the nocebos. So, what's wrong with me?
Right.
That's a big one for me.
Yeah.
Because if something's not right, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry.
Yeah, no, right? Because like when you're so caught up with trying to feel good all the time, the moment you don't feel good it's like, well, what's wrong with me? And nothing's wrong with you. Maybe you're just tired. Maybe you need more rest. So just managing those thoughts, watching those thoughts, not judging yourself, not putting yourself down, being kind to yourself with the thoughts that you say. It's so important, so powerful.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That what's wrong with me is a huge one, and that normally goes to childhood. I mean, it always does.
Well, I think we do that to our kids. Like, why are you losing it? What's wrong with you? What's the problem right now? And so I think we got to be really careful about that language. Definitely my biggest takeaway today. Neil, I love you, man. I appreciate you. Amazing episode. We'll put all your show links or your show notes and link in the links below. People can find Neil Cannon on social media. You can find him on his book. What's the best way to contact you, Neil, if they want to reach out?
On the website, and I can also give my email address. It's neil@vitalitysecret.com.
Amazing. And for you, Neil, what does it mean to live a rich life?
Ooh. to be surrounded by friends that you care deeply about, to preferably have a partner, do the things that you love to do, have the means to do it, and enjoy a few luxuries every now and again. But really, it comes from the emotional, for me, I would say, the emotional freedom of living in alignment with one's purpose and enjoying that with people you really care about.
Beautiful. Blessings, man. Thanks for doing this. I honor you for the work you're doing, serving others, and appreciate all the work and research and energy you've put into it. The Vitality Code by Neil Cannon. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you so much, Ashish.